A 162-year-old European bank, fully regulated, operating in over 70 countries, already had their stablecoin running on 2 blockchains. They did not need to add a third. They chose to anyway. And the chain they chose was the XRP ledger. That is where we are starting today. Because when a bank that has been operating since 1864 makes a compliance-approved, board-level decision to deploy on your ledger, that is not a trend. That is a structural signal. And today, we have 3 of them. This is XRP verified. Let us get into it. Let us start in Europe. Société Générale, one of the largest banks in the Eurozone, recently added the XRP ledger as their 3rd public blockchain for their regulated Euro stablecoin. Now, here is what makes this significant. They launched on Ethereum first, then Solana, both functioning, both live, both working. And they still went through months of compliance review, legal approval, and board-level sign-offs to add the XRP ledger as a 3rd option. Banks of this size do not do that casually. They do it because the chain offers something the others do not. The CEO of their digital asset division stated it publicly on launch day. 3 words: transparency, security, and scalability. Those are not marketing terms from a crypto white paper. Those are specific criteria that a 162-year-old regulated European bank used to justify deploying real capital on the XRP ledger. Now here is the technical reason behind that decision, and this matters. The XRP ledger has native compliance tools built directly into its architecture. Freeze functionality, clawback capability. If a regulator requires the bank to freeze a specific token or reverse a transaction for legal reasons, the XRP ledger can do that natively without custom smart contracts. For a bank operating under European Union supervision, that is not optional, it is mandatory. Add to that 3 to 5 second deterministic settlement finality, meaning once confirmed, it is final, not probabilistic, and a transaction cost structure that makes institutional scale processing economically viable. So General did not choose the XRP ledger because it was trending. They chose it because its architecture was built for exactly the kind of regulated institutional settlement they need to operate. Now here is the part most people watching this completely miss. There are now 3 regulated fiat currencies settling natively on the XRP ledger. The US dollar through Ripple's stablecoin, the euro through Société Générale's regulated euro stablecoin, the Australian dollar through a fully licensed Australian financial services entity. 3 of the world's most traded currencies on one ledger right now. In the current banking system, settling transactions across those 3 currencies requires multiple correspondent banks, multiple pre-funded accounts in each currency, multiple intermediaries each extracting a fee, and 2 to 5 days of settlement time. On the XRP ledger, the same 3 currencies settle automatically in 3 to 5 seconds with no intermediaries and no Nostro accounts required. A multi-currency settlement layer is being built by regulated institutions on the XRP ledger right now. And every single transaction on that ledger, whether it is a euro settlement, a dollar transfer, or a cross-currency swap, requires a fee paid exclusively in XRP, not in the stablecoin, not in any other token. Only XRP. And that fee is permanently destroyed, removed from circulation forever. This is hard-coded into the protocol. It cannot be changed without breaking the ledger itself. More institutional volume means more XRP required. More XRP required means more XRP permanently removed from supply. That is not a narrative. That is protocol architecture. Now, let us talk about what is happening on the legislative side, because 2 pieces of legislation are moving right now that will determine how fast all of this scales. The Genius Act and the Clarity Act. One congressman described the relationship perfectly. Genius is the cell towers. Clarity is the cell phone. The Genius Act established the legal framework for dollar-backed stablecoins, and those stablecoins are already being used globally. A cab driver in Brazil doing business in US dollars through a regulated digital dollar. That is the Genius Act working in real time. But stablecoins alone are not the full picture. Clarity is what provides the framework for everything else. The exchanges, the payment infrastructure, the institutional rails. Without clarity, institutions have the stablecoin, but no legal certainty around the infrastructure it moves on. Brad Garlinghouse called this the ChatGPT moment for crypto. And here is the data that backs that statement. Ripple Treasury orchestrated $13 trillion in payments last year. 0% of those payments moved through a stablecoin or crypto rail. 0. And yet globally, $33 trillion in stablecoin trades occurred last year. The infrastructure is ready. The demand is building. The missing piece is regulatory certainty, and Clarity provides it. Senator Cynthia Lummis confirmed the next steps publicly, combining the Senate Banking Committee version with the Agriculture Committee version, adding ethics language, technical refinements aligned with the Genius Act, then a Senate floor vote this summer. The realistic signing, end of summer. When that happens, the institutional capital that has been sitting on the sidelines waiting for legal certainty will move. And XRP, which already has a federal court ruling declaring it is not a security, will be the asset best positioned to capture that institutional flow. And then there is the executive order. President Trump signed 2 executive orders directly targeting fintech and digital asset integration into traditional finance. The first directs federal regulators to review and streamline rules fostering competition between crypto companies and traditional banks. The second, and this is the one that matters most for Ripple, directs the Federal Reserve to evaluate how non-bank financial firms and crypto companies are granted access to its wholesale payment systems. Master accounts, direct Fed access. FedWire alone processed $4.5 trillion per day last year. That is just one system. Right now, Ripple connects to these systems through third-party correspondent banks, each one extracting fees and adding settlement friction. Direct Fed access would eliminate that middle layer entirely. Faster settlement, lower costs, more institutional volume flowing directly through the XRP ledger. And the executive order goes further. It mandates that the Federal Reserve establish transparent application procedures for crypto firms and respond to applications within 90 days. Ripple already applied for a Fed master account. That application was sitting without a deadline, without a process, without any accountability. That just changed. The White House stated directly, the current rules favor incumbents at the expense of innovators. Meanwhile, Ripple Prime just integrated with EDX Markets. EDX is backed by Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Citadel Securities, and Goldman Sachs, institutions with a combined $11.5 trillion in assets under management, serving 77 million active broker accounts. When that clearinghouse flips its switch, it opens what analysts described as a 16-lane highway for institutional capital into digital assets. And Ripple Prime is already integrated and ready. Let me bring all of this together. A 162-year-old European bank chose the XRP ledger for regulated institutional settlement, after already having 2 working chains. 3 of the world's most traded currencies are now settling natively on the XRP ledger. Every transaction on that ledger permanently destroys XRP by protocol, not by promise. The Clarity Act is moving through the Senate this summer, and when it passes, Institutional capital that has been waiting for legal certainty will move fast. Trump's executive orders are forcing the Federal Reserve to open direct payment access to fintech firms, including Ripple, with a mandatory response timeline. Ripple Prime is now integrated with Wall Street-backed institutional infrastructure, managing $11.5 trillion. And Ripple Treasury moved $13 trillion in payments last year, with 0% through crypto rails. That 0% is the opportunity. The infrastructure is built, the regulatory framework is arriving, the institutional signals are confirmed. The price has not caught up yet. But protocol architecture, board-level bank decisions, and legislative momentum do not lie. Stay informed, stay patient, stay positioned. If this video gave you real value today, subscribe to XRP Verified. I cover these developments every single day, so you always know what is happening before the rest of the market figures it out. I will see you in the next one.